The father and mentor of the hero constantly told him that people do what they can do in order to live in this world. The main character lived with the art of combat. The young man dreamed of becoming the head of the family, the owner of the house from a young age. When he began to study mathematical sciences, he believed that a man should do grand. At some point, he already considered himself a very strong person, ready for anything in your path, and he was sure that he would be the best person in life with his family, but he began to think more. Very realistic when his father won despite the fact that he is sleeping only 2 hours a day and spent all that time training. Not to mention the food breaks and other needs he couldn't defeat his father. It was very disappointing considering that his father was not only a great military leader, he was just a vampire and an old man. His father deciding to his son that his skills were sufficient to live, and if he were careful, then one could live to an old age. The dad was very modest and wanted his son to be the same, but that was the main character's problem. There were a lot of big ambitions and set the bar much higher, so he worked meticulously in dealing with storms and chilling temperatures. The young man hoped that the person who did such a great job would be worthy of becoming famous and recognized everywhere. However, it was hard to say that his efforts were ultimately worthy of anything in the end after his father's return. There was something special about the young man, and he even received the title of the beautiful cursed solver, which he decided to talk about. He himself believes that his father is just a loser so as not to feel insulted by his many victories about the old man. But such a thought always made him feel indifferent, especially since his father was the only one who never killed him. Thus, the heroine decides to go to the Sworn World territory, where his father warned him. He was confident that he could take his position there and defeat any opponent in combat, but he was confident when he met someone he wanted to forget, and so he became a werewolf all over again. It was precisely this moment, the moment he met a young woman who seemed defenseless from their first meeting. She came from a wealthy family. It was a family and she was always in a cheap outfit. Now that they were married and everything around it seems that they are already married here, maybe because of her aura, the heroine worked even harder so that his wife did not lose anything, but there was one thing. The problem was that the money was enough for one person. However, she did not complain about her husband for every penny he brought home. Even if he did not tell her not to thank him. However, he ignored their comments, knowing that their wives were close to them. Very beautiful as his cumwit. When she became pregnant, the heroine was the happiest woman in the world. It would be a baby of his blood and blood. As a man who lost his mother and father, he always dreamed of starting on a big scale in a family and becoming the head of a new generation. He got everything he wanted, but the gods were not kind to him when he was small. When it was time for a child creativity, he had lasted for several hours, and the main characters were standing in their house farewell. Everything would be all right if he could only take his mother his pain, and he did so. However, his mother came and told him that, despite their many efforts, the baby has not yet appeared. Mom had to decide either mother or child. Of course he decided it was the mother and not the young woman. He decided it was the mother and not she came to him, despite the pain she felt, in order to tell him that she did not agree with something that she had after birth. They took it inside in order to avoid more serious consequences, and after a while the child finally came and called out. The man barely had time to calm down when his mother told him that there was another one and sent him in order to buy 2 more women. He went to the village and of course the main character gave birth to 3 children, 2 sons and 2 sons. And another wife and 1 daughter died in his arms, and the first time a man cried he never heard and never heard and never heard, he absorbs. For the first time, the young woman began to address him for help, said she must have it. She stayed with her husband but did not have the strength for this, after which she took the last sip of the greater of joy. These were the shadows of sorrow, and the man cursed with the gods for such an injustice that he wanted to pull out of his divine paradise. Touch and rub him to the end. What would he do to deserve such guilt? Did nothing wrong and did not harm women, children and young people, and why should he have been arrested in this way? The man confirmed that the mother of the children died, and then the woman took home crying father of children. For them, the protagonist could not do anything but scream after the still warm body of his wife he left him dead. The man kissed his hand and kissed her, squeezing her neck. He asked her goodbye for not having time to bury her. After all, he had to raise their children with dignity. He saw her eyes. The young woman died happy because she was in the last moments. She was with her husband and small children. The protagonist promised his wife that they would be together. He would see each other again when they grew up and could finally calm down, and then left his apartment where there were 3 people, marry with children in their arms expected him because they were all born alone and no less one girl for years. Such thoughts went to a man, but he tried to leave them because they were his children and he should have left them. Even though it would be very difficult, the man asked the head of the nurse to find 2 wet midwives and take them in order for them to have enough milk to feed the children and also to look after the newborns. Today the first thing was to look after the newborns. A man made to leave his mother alone in a wooden enclosure. A young woman will have to wait a long time for him, the time he has to live before he gives birth to their 3 children, and they started their family and only then they start their families and maybe they'll meet again in another world. After his little birthday, left all his things in his house. So it turned out that the wife left cheap bracelets for her, which his wife accepted, although he told her to leave them when he bought more. It's expensive. That should be enough for a 10-year-old with 3 kids, but he can't think about it. Maybe he can give his children the best job, but it's dangerous, and no one knows what will happen to the children, and if he died they have no other relatives and they definitely won't be able to live in their place, so he must take care of him, so he must take care of this. After the children can live on their own, then the protagonist goes to a man who usually refers to a man who give him a job. He promised to be his guard in the morning and evening, but give him a decent amount. For a rich man just smiled in his eyes and said that it was too much and he should not pay so much, and then the new father asked him for it, another safe and well-paid worker. In fact there are no such workers, in fact there was nothing like that. However, when the rich man remembered situation in which the protagonist was, he offered him a weapon to prepare for it. The clubs in the Iron Dragon Alliance are looking for March Masters, so now everyone Mage and Master March, so now all Mage and Master March, so now all Mage veterans are caught here because everyone wants to join the respected clans of Miram. They also pay well. If there is one good thing, the guy will have enough to support himself and the children. The main character is not very sure. In order for him to be able to handle this case, the Arrow clan and the Iron Dragon Alliance are 2 very respected people. Organization. According to Muram's standards, if he passes not dangerously, after all the clans are fighting each other together and he will have to fight stronger opponents than before constantly, so he is not sure if he can be sure of this. It is a good idea before, as long as the one who warned him on this stage someone can live in peace. Now the war is over and the war is over and the war is over and the war is over. A few years later, and now the 4 great clans are perfectly combined with each other, and then the heroine decided it was he has to deal with it because he is good at dealing with problems. The heroine came to where the warlords were chosen and the warlords were chosen, and approaching the registration place, the man who registered the participants saw in the role of a flicker hero with a huge potion. To win, he gave him a black cord in order to pull it out on his hand and then went to the beginning of all the trials of people. He said that the young man looked at himself confidently and would certainly not come to anything, and then he began to take trials. The first test was to catch a stone, which many earlier men, who were much older, could not make heroes. It seemed to me that this stone must have been very heavy, but he was able to pull it out and hold it over his head. He was surprised how light wood was, and those who watched the examination were surprised that someone could do it, especially after like someone can do it. After the other contestants failed despite their best performance, the next test was to skate on ice filled with glass. Charts. The heroes thought the gun was too small to test his dexterity, and he thought it was to test his dexterity, so the acting hero sat for a few seconds before he jumped and passed the test with ease, but will not find this gadget. In order to make sure that they were deliberately hired by the feeders. But why were the tests so cruel? And one more task? In order to find another team for them. The one who stood next to him calmly thought about his blow, releasing all the strength he could do for this. A very painstaking and deep test of his mettle. At this point, the heroes, without any obvious desire, divided their metals in a clean manner. The same log of everyone present thought that it could be more, and even so that it could not be divided so easily. Gadget asked where the next inspection would be because he had already experienced many colored scars on his arm from what he has already experienced. Many brown scars. However, he said it was the last test and the hero was very surprised. They are looking for surveyors, maybe some kind of weapon aids, one of the people doing the tests, but he replied that he was usually called a person who solved problems well. This left the worker shocked by the mentor. The clan understood from the man's answer that he was a former Americanist, and he asked what art school he went to, Due to the fact that he demonstrated such skills, the heroine does not remember exactly, but his teacher once talked about what his teacher was talking about, that he and how should he respect some ancient apostle. In the end there is nothing better instead of just saying that there was a school, but he did not remember the name of the mentor from the club. It was very good, very surprised at the person who gave such results cannot remember the school where he studied. It doesn't matter anymore, since he passed all the tests. His mentor said that Gadget should not follow him, and on the way to him and way, the leader saw him have a training monster that reminded him of part of the test. He asked the man what it was, and he answered him. It was only for those who collected all the rubber bands for completely passed tests. They just turned out with no Gadget. He asked to try this test. In reality they just forgot to remove this sensor after they removed this sensor after they removed this one. But since it wasn't too valuable, it wasn't a big problem if someone like that tested it. First of all, someone touched him lightly from his hand, but his mentor advised him to beat him with a screw in the first jerk. He did not know how it could react and could not tear it off, and the smoke slid to the side like a horned one, and the elf slid to the side like a horned one. When he urged no Gadget not to turn wooden spikes on him, the teacher instantly understood that it was simple and simple. Mercenary could not destroy such an item as it was made in such a way that it required spiritual power instead of physical strength to knock her down, but from the second blow, no one thought that he fell into a hole. It was a shame for the mentor that catching fire was much more difficult than catching a monster, but just in order to knock down a monster, not satisfied with the result and asked for another attempt in order to better distribute the force of the assault, but he needed to better distribute the force assault, but he should instead, he concentrated in one place on the second attempt. He smashed a dozen into small pieces. He said he liked this training very much and asked the mentor if he would fully pass with a man within bliss of the dead. After that they went to the classroom where the teacher counted the labels on the feet, but it was possible and could have been done. I don't remember any of them, and again asked if they were all tests, and after they were received absolutely negative answer, he did not allow the mentor to speak yet one phrase. I want to talk about payments at work. The employee will check the measure of restraint, and if he passed all the tests, then they will discuss payment. To what extent the teacher said that he was pleased to listen to Nago Gadget's wishes, and he was the first to ask a question about how supports the weapon clan. In families. His face became wet as he did not know what to say. Even when asked about what he said, he confidently said that usually the standard payment was accompanied by family benefits, and he asked not very much education for his children in a house next to the workplace, and it's nice to have a mentor Nana for them. He wasn't enough, and the characters thought he was asking too much and maybe going too far, and then he decided for him to pay for the Nana himself, but he probably needed an education and a house, or he couldn't get a raise. He was afraid of his children. He was afraid that he needed a lot and maybe get out of this place now. Gadget left an oath to the clan, utterly disappointed. How could one of the most respected clans in the world take part? They were not only for them and not for their family. They were not only for them and for them. Just asked for something just enough for him to have his 3 children. The only way to find the main character easily passed a test in another organization, and also when I asked the mentor for family support, he received the answer that was not given. But they were, if they wanted to do it here, they would give him apartments not very close but still in the castle, and so he would live that way. For a man it should be fit for a man in the union. There was a school for mathematical arts, but if he didn't want his kids he can send them to regular school all the time, so no problem. This doesn't come up, and the teacher said that they don't mind paying for nanny for their kids, nor Gadget was happy and willing to endure as much testing as necessary. But the mentor already understood his abilities and replied that there was no point in doing so. In the morning, when he puts the kids to bed, the man is worried about his new job and the responsibilities he is doing. Absolutely worried about his wife for the first time because he has to do all on your own. How to be a good father, at least in part because the person who was supposed to be an example for him did not become an example to take part in his life as a child, despite all the difficulties with which he must raise his children, despite all the difficulties with which he must and give them everything that other parents give their children. The main thing is that they do not grow up to be the same scundry as their father. No way. Gadget started looking for a Nanki that promised a good salary, and so he started looking for a Nanki that promised a good salary. There are also several specialists, but precisely in order to find the right, it turned out to be a very difficult task. Women came who had to be helped. They thought that they would work only for their beauty and for young women with more experience, but at this age they could only work for their beauty. Did not hear anything about what he said, that he was almost reluctant to find the right one when a long and strong woman. Upon opening the room, at a glance, she realized that the house was dirty and filthy, so she began to start. After she was appointed for cleaning, she took a crying and hungry child in her hands and instantly fed them. The man realized that he had found the ideal Nana. The main character received a certificate of the first class of a military leader. These were exactly they were just them. They were the best military leaders of the Iron Dragon Alliance, and the man who was supposed to behave in this way were also appointed. His first task is to stand guard at the gate. The one who gave him this task began to warn no one Gadget that all these rookies must go this way, and it is not necessary to assign such tasks to him, but the main character took this path. But the main hero took this way job, surprised his mentor with great enthusiasm. Usually they guard the actions of the kidnapped knights, even though Gadget was dead. If anyone were worried about such a thing, it would be unbelievable that someone would want to directly attack the castle, and the guards don't take part in the attacks. That was the best job. In order to increase the resilience of the Guardians of the Secret Dragon Alliance, Kai Hakto hears a report from him from his office subordinate, who informs him that the new customer already inhabits like any first-class warrior, but it seems that he is. It will take you a very long time to figure out his origins, and the guard calls on his subordinate to keep him at a distance. Ward Nagajin, however, the suspect questions why this apparently ordinary young man is such an important Kai Hakto to himself. Would not have believed in the ability of such simplicity if he had not seen them with his own eyes. He watched this the young man experienced and was very surprised that he did not remember the school that he once was aware of, but in general no. There are a lot of masters in the world who can train such a good commander, and when not Gadziat said that he was expelled from the temple Eward clan because he needed a lot of conditions to support children, and the guard told him not to tell anyone. It was only for the high potential guardians who were only for the high potential guardians who were only for the high potential guardians. Great. Probably the clan that denied it will be very offended, and they will admire the union for having such an ally. In the first class of warrior, the guard asked how powerful this young man is a teacher, which he asked if he had. There had never been a single visit to Mir before, but Gadget did not answer that he was just a Mexican and that Muram was completely different. At this level, the guard already understood his subordinate skepticism as confidence in such a huge energy force, which could be able to verify such a huge energy force. This can only be seen from his own eyes, so he simply ordered his kinsman to keep his gaze closer to him. The main character ran in order to do his examination as soon as possible, and while no one tried to leave him speaking to the children so that they could sleep peacefully, his father put them on their feet and even sat down with them. In his hands the character was supposed to work tomorrow, but he couldn't sleep. Because of the kids he thought it would be right to find Nana's backup, because it was stupid to take only one in the future. He should have told Nana not to do that. The kids sleep so much during the day, because obviously at night they won't sleep after a long time. After they rushed and sang labyrinths, the victors finally died, but immediately the man flunked one of them down. When the child left him and began to cry and all the others began to cry with him, it was almost done when the children were children in their arms. Their father lay again. The man was surprised how quickly the guys reacted when no Gadget was lying. They sat down on the bed, causing them to instantly start crying, and now all three were sleeping peacefully on the bed, and now all three were calmly in her mother's neck. The main character asked if he could sleep so peacefully or if he killed the children in his bedroom. After a while, he solved the problem by pulling his legs off the rope around the corners of the bedroom and surrounding himself. In case one of the children fell after a few months, the main character continued to work as a guard after a few months. Another successful day passed and he greeted those who replaced him at the main gate and was ready to go. When his boss came to his house and said that he had a special working day for him after tomorrow, but the truth was he got for his special the main character didn't want anything other than a guardian of the spirit, especially on a day off, and tried to try out the trials in order to convince her boss to find someone else to work with. This really surprised his boss, as the other warriors try to show him in fact they are in the best light, but this one, on the contrary, does not want to move below the post of the guard, and this one does not want to move below the post of the guard. Father of 3 children perfectly satisfied with his safe and successful work. Place the boss does not understand this lively position and claims that only he can handle this case, can't do anything for Gadget, except that he can't work for him. This is the bonus they used. To beat him now he's ready for any mission, even if he is pay several days for each day he can leave the children alone, and he can leave the children alone. The boss told him the day and time and said he can't walk. At that moment, when a group of guards from the secret dragon army, including the main character, went for a walk on one of the sites. The road to the mountain for the mission, everyone was riding a horse except one Gadget, who said that it was much more comfortable. Therefore, others believed that a beginner simply did not know how to ride a horse and did not knows how to ride a horse, but others thought that a beginner simply did not know how ride on. After all, he explained to him how to do it for the guards from the Earth Dragon clan, for whom there is no Gadget and other guards in order for them to be protected. They did not understand what they were for protected. There would be enough warriors from their club, although it could be that they could be accepted as servants for their club, or maybe they were the main heroine and the guys from their squad could hardly come to terms with the fact that they want to say something in response to them. If they were only here for the money, otherwise they couldn't do it with such sanity. To the main man, who was exactly him, left in the guard of 2 stingrays from different clans, everything was more careful and still warned that it was not Gadget who had to learn to write, and also warned and the horse in order not to do this risked becoming a burden in the future. Out of courtesy to this man, no Gadgets may not refuse, so he thanked him for his advice and went to the horse. He understood how to drive, but he knew how to drive but he knew how to drive but he knew how to drive but he I just didn't want to stand on my own 2 feet. First of all, others were very surprised by this. Through comes to the community of the master of weapons, the main man takes weapons on the head of the community, and the main man takes weapons on the head of the community, and so thank you for coming to them. He thanked the teachers and the ability to take part in the celebration of the birth of the chapter personal, but this is not a problem for the head because he understands that the teacher is very busy and the guest thank you for his understanding and glad that others from the bench were able to come, and Gadget is a little worried that he can come, and Gadget is a little. That's why upper class loves congratulations and thanksgiving, even though they are not Solar the head of management. The community is making arrangements to serve guests, and the protagonist only thinks about how much he loves, and the protagonist would like to go home with the kids. The heroine, when her eat fill, decides to go for a walk. He inspects some things. The children play around them and do not pay attention to them, and the children stop watching them when they notice him in alliance with him. But only the strongest military leaders are part of this union. They do not wonder what needs to be done in order to join it. And for words, he cannot tell the children how easily he was accepted into one of the best organizations in the world. Naroma, he can't give an answer to one of the boys in the Union of the Divine Dragon. This man was not born in the Union and therefore does not deserve respect. That such elves cannot and will not defeat their elven brothers. The girl believes that such elves mercenaries pay money and therefore they are important for the Union, and such a powerful organization as this would never have been so. Having made money on Merkin and his girlfriend, she did not agree with the promise that fame and glory cannot be measured with money. However, the girl believes that she cannot be the only one who can be protected from honor and glory. In reality, these children are not afraid of gain. They continue to argue until those as long as the children grow up and leave the girl. She knows everything on her own. Gadget calmly does not say that she does not pay attention to the children's jokes that the main character expresses. He rejoices at the little girl for her sweet words and even admits to her that he is really dead and weak. Better than the guards of the world, the girl tells him not to be humble and reminded him that he was scared for Higa, although he had fears for Higa, although he does not understand who he is. After some time, a group of assassins jumped on the fire of a nearby building and free the children. They have in mind also try to take the girl, but she seems to be protected by some invisible force, a hunter with swords and a mask in his place. So the face shines in a black hat and stands in front of a girl who warns her to go towards the main character. Really? The Gadget looks at the children and thinks that if he does something differently, he won't be able to do anything because there are a lot of Marama guards here. They will definitely deal with these assassins quickly, and now he just needs to leave because he is weaker than the usual warriors he sees. The same guy who comes behind him, Melgain, understands that they have too many opponents. They try to overcome them to attack the guards who protected the girl, but they cannot do anything for him because he delicately destroys their blows. The main character does not understand what the hell this master is. He did not want to do anything wrong, he attracts the attention of killers and then goes on the attack, leaving the girl in his arms a little late. He realizes that he had to move the other way when he walks just into the wall, which he hits with a weapon and comes out from the inside as soon as no gadget starts walking towards him. Think about what to do next when the enemies appear in front of him. He's sure they're not ordinary killers. I couldn't imagine that someone could even throw a child from such a protected place with the horror that he is aware of. That not even the guards came to help, and he will have to do everything by yourself. The protagonist of the protagonist. It is difficult to suppress the attack when a frightened girl lies in his arms. You warn her to hold in her arms to hold her. He is stronger and guarantees her that soon everything will be fine. One of the assassins who attack any gadgets with weapons, and he is preparing to block a blow from his legs. The attacker thinks it's stupid, but the angle of the sword is only to kill him, but also for the fact that not a single man is enough, and his leg hits the attacker in the face, and the guys get scared when they find out that he beats attacking in the face and someone. There are two masters in these walls instead of one, and the hero understands that something not this way. There are a lot of killers here and they seem weak, although they are calm, so they should not fall from there. And with one blow, he flies into the forest with enemies. In the cold hunt, there is no way Gadget can hold them and squeeze them from his side. The road in the forest is the most convenient place to do this, and there are many children in the yard, but here are the children. Assassins go exclusively after him, believing that their goal is the girl he saved and the other children just taken with her. The leaders of the union look at the map and discuss which they mean, what they were looking for and what they weren't looking for, yet the head of the community couldn't even think of something like that. It would be within its limits, but the problem is not that. They just have to find the missing girl. Ask the leader to explain how she ended up here, and he is very clearly answer that what happened led to her living in this world. In time, if something happens to her, all the unions will have difficulty and try to come up with this another plan for finding her. When they come to the noise from the street and everyone is in a hurry, not Gadget goes out into the street with a girl on his back. Her outfits are torn and many small scars on him and many observers. He surrounds him. He scolds his rivals with a smile, saying that everything is not went very well according to plan, but they are. There is no point in this place protecting the wrong person he tried to protect a couple of days ago in the dead of night. They were hiding in the forest with a little girl. Their guns were still on their tail, but someone could find them, place them on the second by the sound of their voices. He told the girl not to be afraid to hit without hands. It was hardly a difficult matter, but the heroine was able to cope with it using weight fluctuations and other actions. Thanks to his technique, he was able to handle a lot of fighters without weapons and even without using his hands. No one regrets that they did not kill their enemies' scouts and did not rush earlier, because now there were a lot of them and they were a lot and they were. Maybe he will have a few injuries after he ran away from his companions. He and the little girl jumped the mountain. Think they only have to stay for a couple of days because they already know what happened and already mean that the union already knows about when the girl began to react. The girl feels blood on her body and worries about him, but the man is sure that this is all there is. Something broke and he is absolutely fine. That evening, the heroine led to her inflammation, which was worn precisely in this evening. For the girl, the injury was much more severe than usual, but it did not interfere with his movement. The little girl seemed to be just like that. At any moment she could cry. The man offered to wash her, and it turned out that the child's hands were sore. Maybe he was wounded in the course of the fight, by no means, and dried the girl, as he did his children at home, and told her. They talk about them. They dined with fish cooked on fire, and the girl lay on the grass covered with smoke. At the same time, the outfits of the protagonist at the same time not Gadget decided to eliminate the danger in the neighboring areas, since he himself had already decided to eliminate the fears in the neighboring areas. Martial arts worked against these people in disguise. The group returned to the graveyard of the Iron Dragon, one of the members of the Divine Dragon Alliance. The men decided to ask not a single Gadget and what happened to him when the guys were cartoon masters, and it was just that. Interesting that he died, but the main character only replied that they were weak, which surprised everyone on Earth. Dragon Union Squid has yet to express their dissatisfaction with him, though they were disappointed that someone else was showing heroism and not Han Munjin, the man the hero sent to protect and protection. Others could not understand what happened, for no Gadget had spiritual power, and he easily dealt with it. It is possible that the martial master is lying about his powers. Either way, he should be sure of his powers anyway. He should be sure of there. We thank God that the glory of the Union remained intact. When the hero came home, he realized that he was his son. The children were not yet lying fiercely on their chests, but quickly frowned somewhere, although Gadget believed that he was sure that Gadget believes he was. During the 5 days he was away, his children forgot about him, but the nanny explained that they were just growing up, discovering the world around them. His daughter, however, still wanted her father's attention, as did his sons and children, despite the fact that the man was pleased to kiss her carefully, and the master caught her, and the boys who returned without a hand and successfully managed. In the process, he cannot comprehend how they successfully completed such a simple mission and add one more little thing. They tell him about some missionary with the power of a master. Of course, hard to do it, that's the truth, and that's the master with a gloomy hand sends those who made mistakes to find the person who was able to exterminate all of his part. On the benches of the masters of metallurgy, it was not Gadget who again stopped his usual work as a guard, but his partner asked about the latest news that had happened recently. But he was mainly interested in how much money the hero paid. In fact, the partner expected from him. In honor of this event, originally not, Gadget patiently refused as all his income was going down. However, after some thought, he realized that the partner is his only friend and agreed. In the morning, he had to take him in the alley in a relatively cheap place because after returning home after Gadget returned home, there was no way. It was very unexpected. The bandits inside it was very much. As for the temple, as well as being strange and charming, he suggested that the bandits just leave when they were still unarmed, since they were still unarmed. In other cities they could meet richer people, but their goal was not money they would like to throw. He threw it easily at him, but he was too hungry and happy to give.